Making crypto usable is a somewhat difficult task. That is to say, abstracting away from the technical details, something that people can use from day to day. How does one do it, and what are the kind of implications that one has to think about in order to achieve it? Today, we're going to talk with Manuel Beaudroit, who is CEO at Belo on Crypto Clarified. Welcome back. I'm Benjamin Dean. I am a director in WisdomTree's digital asset team. This is the podcast where we think about the world of cryptocurrencies and tokens. We think about the opportunities and risks that are associated with them to help you navigate forward in a sensible way. For US listeners, check out wisdomtreeprime.com, the Apple or Android app stores. Hit subscribe and share on Spotify, YouTube, and iTunes. And you can always find me on X, that app, at Benjamin Dean. Before we begin, shout out to Sam and James in compliance. Before I begin, I need to state the following to clarify the views and opinions expressed in this podcast of those of WisdomTree and Belo are subject to change. Anything presented in this podcast is not intended to be relied upon as a forecast, research, nor as investment or tax advice. The information and opinions expressed in this podcast are not a recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any securities or reliance upon them as the sole discretion of listener. Please remember, past performance is no indication of future results. All right. It's time to get on to the fun stuff. Now we're going to cut to Manu for the interview. Manu, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming and joining me.
Thank you for the invite. It's a pleasure to talk with you today.
It's always nice to see you. We've seen each other many times. I think last time was a most wonderful asado in Buenos Aires.
And you helped me pick up some ice packs. So that was disruptive.
Hey, look, if that's the least I can pay, picking up ice with you to have a delicious asado, I do that any day of the week. Look, to get things started, how about you tell the listeners a bit about yourself and how you came to form Belo and what you're trying to do there?
Okay, so my name is Manuel Beaudroit. I'm 42 years old. I've been have an hectic career. So I started studying biology, then multimedia technology, 5 years in Accenture. There is where I get to know Bitcoin. And for the last 12 years, basically devoted to this technology and really, I would say almost obsessed into how we can get people to use this on the day to day. So we started with a broker firm 2012, 2013, peer-to-peer marketplace, a Bitcoin exchange in 2014. I did an exit, and in 2021 we launched Belo as a way for people to live in crypto every day, because I kind of figured out that the problem with the adoption was that we were pushing users to trade Bitcoin as a stock and not starting to think about Bitcoin or stable coins as some medium of exchange or saving that can be accessible for everyone. So kind of the big problem there was much more around the UX rather than the technology itself. Obviously, the technology it's pretty difficult in many ways because it's not human technology. Definitely Satoshi, it's an alien because no one could create something like this. But I think the real challenge was how we can build something that will be stupid easy for people to use and actually start to use it on groceries, on buying an air ticket, on the small little things that kind of permeate into the people's life and can make a change, an impact on their lives forward. So yeah, that's kind of how it started. Obviously, it was a selfish problem because it was my problem. I mean, I started in Bitcoin, I couldn't really easily use it, but then we found out that there were millions of people with the same problem.
Yeah, I mean, that's often a good place to start. I have a problem in how many people are like me. And there you go. Turns out there's a lot. But let's unpack it a bit then for the listeners, right? Because you are from and live in Argentina. And you've mentioned the Bitcoin stablecoins, so US dollar tokens. There's a pain point there which is like, what? There would be people sitting here right now in Switzerland listening and saying, well, why would I want that? I've already got a banking app and blah, blah, blah. Why is that a particular pain point for someone like you and maybe tens or hundreds of thousands of other people just in that continent alone?
Yeah, I mean, Argentina, just to grasp an idea, it's like going to play LOL in really hard mode. It's like the worst level of difficulty to play a game. It's Argentina, which basically it's a really interesting school for learning a lot of crafts around surviving, basically. Okay, with the addition that you can do it through digital technology. So obviously, the most known things are around inflation. So last month, the government, the changing government was, I would say, so far has been quite successful in starting to tackling inflation. But last month, inflation, February 24, was 25% a month, the inflation. So I think that's a good starting point. When you don't trust on the currency of your country, there's a problem of expectation. There's a problem of trust. There is a problem in which you need to figure out how to live in another way, which is different from the facto a sovereign definition. Um, and I think that stressful situation allow us Argentinians and mostly Argentinian entrepreneurs to be really creative into how things can be rewired in a way. And in many ways, crypto has been a really good tool for that. But you have inflation, you have capital controls, so you cannot move your money freely. You have a shit ton of corruption. Um, you have a lot of lack of trust towards institutions overall. Um, and I think, I mean, Switzerland with all those problems will explode into, civil unrest. We somehow are kind of in a really chaotic continuum situation, which never unfolds into this war.
Yeah.
But I think that is kind of the starter pack to living in a really difficult country, let's say. Obviously, those situations have an upside or a good outcome, which is becoming much more creative, looking for new solutions to problems that you didn't knew could exist. And I think those are like vitamins for the entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
And I think having kind of experience in those problems or having understanding of those problems also push you to become much more proficient into actually the technology that can be used to solve them or to circumvent them. And I think that in a way I'm quite positive, saying, okay, it's kind of a life MBA, in a way. It's a postdoctorate in living. And in general, you see this in the entrepreneurs from Argentina. They are really good. They are highly skilled. They are really creative. They are hardworking. They like to party also. But in general,
I know.
we
I
we
know.
we 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 think we at least we live in a tragedy, but in a tragedy, yeah, but with good hopes for the future. Because we know we can make a change in that direction.
Yeah, there's an expression in English which is hardship, we'll say, creates opportunity, or necessity creates opportunity. In any case,
Yeah,
yeah, you got problems, you need
exactly.
solutions. Now,
Yeah.
let's talk a bit about Belo and what you've done, because what I like is you've identified that the technology can be hard to use for a lot of people. And listeners know that I bang on all about PGP encryption for email, which no one ever used, right? But WhatsApp, we've all got it baked in. So essentially, you've abstracted away the technical issues. And then with Belo, like you can have Bitcoin or Ether or a bunch of other things. I know Mountain Protocol's working with you. And then it's connected to a debit card so you can use it. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we did a few stuff there.
Cool.
So one important thing about Belo is that maybe the difference with pure Web3 projects is that we understand that people are not in Web3. That's like first point. Cash or fiat is the elephant in the room. You cannot unsee that it's there, and you somehow need to use that problem in your favor. So what we did first was connect ourselves to the payment infrastructure of the country, which in Argentina, it's a payment service provider. It's kind of a small banking license, which gives you access to the clearinghouse, basically. Okay. That automatically allows you to be one more player of the payment infrastructure. On top of that, we launch a prepaid card, which basically allows you to interact globally almost with any merchant without any problem. And on top of that, it's where things start to get more interesting. So we build a kind of a broker engine in which you can deposit Bitcoin, Ether, so Bitcoin on layer one and Bitcoin on Lightning. This is important because Latam it's a poor region. Our GDP per person it's small in comparison to other countries. So we need to tackle how much fees you are paying on transactions. That's why I think that Ether on layer one on Ethereum, it's a rich boy experiment because you cannot pay for those fees to actually use the technology. And I think that problem, which in a way the whole Vitalik and the gang change was against the actual adoption of the technology and bring us other problems of roll-ups and stuff. So we have Bitcoin on layer one, Lightning. We have Ethereum and on layer one and a lot of different roll-ups or like Polygon, Arbitrum, Optimism, and Tron. We have
Wow.
DAI, we have USDC and USDT, which is the most widely used stablecoin in LATAM.
Yeah.
So when you see stablecoin used in LATAM, Tether over Tron, it's like 90% of the volume of the users. So that's both on deposits and withdrawals. So we allow users to have a limited amount of assets, which are kind of curated. We haven't listed Luna, Terra, or those shitcoins, and we are not going to do it because we have kind of a responsibility towards our users. So we want to kind of only list whatever we think it's kind of the most secure ones. So you can enter and withdraw money in the most non-expensive way possible right now. In the middle, you can exchange any asset to any asset, both pesos to crypto and crypto to crypto. And that is kind of the engine in which the card functions. So each time you swipe the card, basically you select in a waterfall mode which asset you want to spend first. So imagine you have Bitcoin, Ether, DAI, and Tether. You can select to pay first with DAI and Tether and save Ether and Bitcoin. That start to kind of hack the people's mind with this 60 years old technology and allowing to connect the dots and show them that, hey, you can actually use Bitcoin, your Bitcoin to pay on your day to day. Then the settlement, we do it in another way. That's not a problem, and you don't need to know. But the actual transaction, it's done in Bitcoin from your side. On top of that, what we did was that gift cards. So we have an integration with Bitrefill in which you pay directly with Bitcoin, totally embedded into the app. And we start doing some cool stuff. So last year we integrate Payoneer, so you can move your Payoneer funds from Payoneer to Belo in one click. We enable you to have a SEP account to receive payments from abroad. We did integrations also with Stellar for RTM. Recently we launched debit and credit deposits. So you swipe the card and you buy some assets. And the most interesting thing that we did in the last 2 months was hacking Pix. Pix is the Brazilian payment method used by 160 million people in Brazil. So we allow Belo users to go to Brazil and pay with Pix without being Brazilians. This has been growing like this. Why? Because we basically tackle a real life problem of how to pay abroad. which usually, hey, do I change my cash for local currency or use the card and get, totally rip off with FX rates? So basically, we include a product in the middle in which you take your assets in Belo. It can be pesos or crypto, and you can go to the beach, buy a caipirinha, and pay with Pix locally as a Brazilian. And that was massive. I mean, it was kind of unthinkable of the impact and the reach of users that we have. Just to give you an example, since we launched that in the first 2 weeks, we doubled our MAUs.
Wow.
So it was quite massive, and it's growing every day. And yeah, so I think we will double this month. We'll double on last month TPV, and the revenue is totally out of this world right now. Yeah.
We had Aaron Stanley on last episode to talk about the Brazilian scene there. And so the listeners know about Pix. They know about how big that market is. That's a massive achievement.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah. And I think it's, this maybe I'm biased here. I try to be humble on my sayings, but I think crypto people are bloody intelligent. I mean, they are really intelligent because they have the capacity to solve mathematical problems. But I think they need to walk the street, and start thinking about the intersection of life and IT in a way. There's a lot of real life problems out there that are not being properly served. And I think with brilliant people actually tackling them, we could be better as a human species overall.
Yeah, well, I'm going to agree with you again. I've been reading an excellent book, Leonardo da Vinci.
Yeah, well, the one, the
Now,
goat.
the tangent is that the people who paid for Leonardo to do a lot of his stuff were people like the Medicis, who basically
Yeah.
said, we run a bank and we're going to use the money and we're going to put it into the arts and the sciences and things like that. And we're going to create a better world. But that's what we're going to do.
Yeah. One of the most notable inventions of Leonardo da Vinci was the napkin. You know that obviously really rich people used to clean their hands by attaching white rabbits to the chairs. So they were doing like this, and this guy invented, a piece of cloth to actually clean your hands and not, mistreating an animal on that process.
But it comes back to that's usability, right? There's a question of practicality and then the techniques involved in getting to usability. And then there's the Medicis who bankroll it, right? Anyway, we're diverting, but
we need more of the Medicis, yeah, for sure.
Sure do. We need more people who can link the technology with how people use it so that it is usable. And in that way, it spreads mass market and it makes everyone's lives a bit easier. Let's turn to the next question, which is around obstacles. Now, I was chatting with somebody the other week who set up the crypto show at one of the largest non-bank financial firms in Europe. And they've been waiting 3 years for a banking license. Now, I don't know why they haven't got one. I'm sure it's cost a lot of money. But it's taken 3 years and they still don't have one. Now, you having set up what you've done, which essentially links like the crypto stuff with like people being able to use it in real life, which is the debit card thing and Pix and whatnot. What are the obstacles that you've run into along the way, given that Argentina is a unique jurisdiction, you're interacting with other unique jurisdictions like Brazil? Is there like maybe a top 3 that you've run into that have kind of almost thrown sand in the gears from delivering people something that's better than what they deal with in the past and present?
Yeah. So Latam overall, I would say, so you can divide it into different type of countries. Okay. I would say Argentina, Brazil are in the most innovative side of it. Okay. meaning that you can start building something. Maybe in Brazil this changed a little bit, but I think it's not like putting, I don't know the expression in English, it is putting the cart before the
Ahead of the
horses.
horse.
Yeah, ahead
Putting
of
the cart
horse.
ahead of
So
us. Yep.
I think overall, regulation has accomplished that to basically stop innovation. So there is kind of this glass, ceiling into which things do not pass, which is quite awful because it doesn't allow two guys or two girls in a garage to start a company. And I think if you do not propel innovation, you're going into basically becoming obsolete, because a dynamic economy, a dynamic country needs to move fast, and maybe, yeah, things are going to, people are going to get hurt, maybe people are going to lose money, but imagine if we will ask the Wright brothers a pile of regulation before inventing the airplane, So
The bicycles need regulation, and we're not turning them into a bicycle with
yeah,
a kite attached to it. We're not doing that.
there is a really good a book called "Where Is My Flying Car?" I recommend to read it. And basically,
Right?
this guy, which is a physics, I think, explains why we don't have a flying car, and it's basically because of regulation. Airplane industry stopped to evolve in the 70s, I think. Um, and the actual, and this is really harsh to say, and maybe I think I'm not wrong, but every airplane innovation was caused by a plane crash. You know, um, and obviously there's a lot of people which die. I'm sorry for them and for their families, but I think there is a cost in innovation. And if you understand that, and maybe there are there are approaches into which, okay, maybe have a sandbox to do it, kind of let allow things to happen in a secure way, and start building from that. But putting the rules too low, I think it hurts the ecosystem overall. And you see this, for example, in Mexico. Mexico, you have the fintech rule, which was the objective of improving the fintech ecosystem, and the only thing that did was create these guarding walls around the existing players, and it's really difficult to get those licenses also. The similar timing, maybe 2-3 years to get a payment processor, a payment service provider license, which is the most thin and really difficult to kind of commit fraud layer of regulation. So I think this will be a hard pill to swallow in a couple of years when they lose, kind of the grit in terms of what they could accomplish if the regulation was not there or was not built in that way.
Yeah, the counterfactual is hard for people to think through, i.e., what would have happened without a certain decision being made or with it. And
I have a saying all the time, which is really, really hard. I like to be uh, politically incorrect, but it's, if you're afraid of leaving, don't even born. It's like, I mean, there is a lot of stuff going on in life, and you need to kind of grasp, hold your horses, and do those things and suffer, and you will learn from that. You need to keep
yeah.
on building.
And what's kind of interesting is in the last 10 to 15 years, we've actually been able to see kind of an experiment break out of the box and happen, which is the Bitcoin and Ethereum networks. They were kind of under the radar for a long time. And then folks went and developed upon the two networks. And now we are where we are. We've just been shown that there's a better mousetrap. And it turns out that people can literally do it, open source developers in the backyard, like I used to do with people, right?
Yeah.
So we've already been shown there's a better system. We know that there are some shortcomings and things that need to be addressed, like managing private keys and whatnot, like you guys are doing at Belo. But there you go. it didn't require one regulation to be passed in order for that ecosystem of new technology to emerge.
Yeah.
That's just a fact now, and it can't be disputed. The kind of interesting question going forward then is what's going to happen and whether it's kind of smothers or ring fences, sets up high barriers to entry. I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas out, but we are at that stage now where there are folks who have actually set things up that are useful and better than the incumbent. But there's a countervailing force coming that it's going to be different in different parts of the world, but I imagine you have to think about it a little bit given where you sit.
Yeah. So, I mean, going maybe to a more, if you think of an investor, maybe it's not the best example, but an investor is trying to maximize output by, minimizing the risk of what it's trying to do, And I think regulation should be working in that way. I mean, if you want to be really, 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 really safe, it's like trying to pay with a cold wallet. It's going to be really difficult for that to accomplish because there is a lot of this care gap and a lot of other stuff. So I think there's balances, and I think it should be kind of first. I think regulation should be incremental.
Okay.
I think there should be a revision on the regulation on regular basis in order to receive feedback. Because if you not iterate on that, the problem is that you will start to generate some deformations in the market that maybe were not initially intended.
Yes.
So making a company wait 3 years for a regulation of this kind, it's absurd. It doesn't make sense at all. There is a lot of people and that or money that can be invested in the mainland in direct investment into the country, new jobs, and it's like hey, Christopherus Columbus, no, you cannot go until we don't check that the Earth is really round because you can fall from the edge. Come on, man. I mean, at some point you need to take risk and see it from yourself.
Yeah, I mean, part of that is the sunsetting idea. So in some places, you've got sunsetting of regulations. After a certain amount of time, they have to be reviewed, right? They expire.
Yeah.
Then you're forced to sit down and rethink it. And yeah, the second one is
but
around.
I think it's our responsibility also as entrepreneurs, like experience and experts in the subject, pushing regulators to actually see what is happening there because they don't have skin in the game. They don't have skin in the game. They are not in the day-to-day of the battle that we are fighting, and they don't see the nuances of what's happening with the regulation.
Yeah, there's plenty of examples of that. But hey, let's move it to a more positive subject because we're coming up on time. Manu, you get to think a lot about the future. That's part of what you do, and
Yeah.
you've been doing it for many, many years. We're at a very interesting point right now. While you and I are recording, Bitcoin's at its all-time high again. This is in. So you've survived crypto winter. Well done.
A few of them.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
We've both gotten through a few. So at this point in time where, everything you've worked on, you've somewhat been justified and vindicated. You built something that is useful, even though it wasn't obvious. Going forward, what is it that you're interested in? And it doesn't have to do with Belo. It can do with whatever you see around this space. What is it that you're interested in or you've got your eye on? Because I'm sure listeners would be interested in hearing about that.
Yeah. There is a few things, maybe I'm not the best example because I'm kind of a public figure in many ways, and it's my own demon there, but fighting for privacy definitely it's one of them. So being what's this, having much more control of our privacy. I think we are being bombarded every day by Trojan horses in which you get kind of your information. And I think obviously there are some companies already tackling this, but I think that that's one big topic. The other one is around, say, kind of the right to transact globally and with whomever we like, which is in connection to privacy, but also with this concept of maybe sovereign individual and having freedom and not being prosecuted by states or institutions. I think obviously that's one of the things the why I'm in crypto in many ways.
Yep.
And I think there is kind of this idea that is in connection to that, which is what will happen if we go into a totally decentralized economy, and what would that future look like? So how can I basically cannibalize Belo in a way? So how can I kill Belo in the most romantic way possible in order not to become irrelevant? I think that's kind of what I'm also trying to figure out. How can we kill ourselves and still become relevant and top of mind of the users? And obviously, I think giving value to the user, which is can be translated as actual money or time or relationships, can be something interesting. There is a lot of people without opportunities because of the place in which they were born. I think applying a privacy layer into blockchain and basically anonymizing and showing, in a normalized way, everyone on the same market, and the buyer will pick the better price, not the guy which went to Harvard or to Yale or to whatever Ivy League. I think that's really interesting because the discount that I have as a startup for being Argentinian, it's 90%.
Uh-huh.
So why is that happening? I'm building stuff that maybe it's not being built elsewhere. I have the creativity, the grit, I have the ambition. And why should I have a discount just for being born or building a company in a place like this? So I think that's kind of, obviously there's part of the risking that many VCs does, which is part of their job. I understand, but I think in a more decentralized, anonymized, reality, all those stuff definitely would be interesting to see how that basically plays out.
Absolutely. Yesterday was the 31st anniversary of the Cypherpunk Manifesto by Eric Hughes, and it touches on two of the topics you've just said. Told us about privacy and anonymity and the freedom to transact.
Yeah.
They are there. They need to be fought for. And then, the other piece is it's a big world. I know Argentinians, great technical universities, very smart people are forced to come up with creative solutions under tough conditions.
And I think, I'm trying to finish. It's Lynn Allen has written a really long book, Broken Money.
Lynn Alden.
Really good. And I have a few things which kind of pop out in my mind, which is, like Michael Saylor would say, there's no second best.
Apparently there isn't. He's up like $2.5-3 billion.
No, and the other one, it's around we are not, maybe us, we kind of see it because we are in the middle of this magics too, but we are heading into this big global problem with money. I mean, people are not grasping the idea of what will happen if we end up in the debt crisis that the US is having,
Yeah.
And I think maybe, it's just like a ghost that will never happen. But what if, and at that point, maybe that's kind of the trigger which will allow, these technologies to speed up the adoption. Uh, and it would be kind of so when COVID struck in Argentina, at least in March 2020, my feeling was we are alone.
Uh-huh.
The government cannot do anything. So it's kind of this worst scenario in which, hey, you're by your own, get your
Mhm.
shit together and manage to survive in every way you could, And I think if we kind of face a situation like that, in which our global currency of exchange, I don't know if it will disappear or it will break in some way. There's going to be a lot of shit hitting the fan, And I think, and it's not something that I would like to happen. Just I want to clarify this because a lot of people will be hurt, and most probably the base of the pyramid, not the top of the pyramid.
Yeah.
But that's why I think it's important to kind of pay attention to this technology and other, repair technology to get in shape.
Have you read the book When Money Dies?
No, I need to.
Okay, check
But I
that
live
book
in a
out.
country where money died
Money dies
a
every
long time
10
ago.
years. Every 10 years it
So
dies there. But so it's probably maybe less interesting to you because you got it through lived experience. But it's about Weimar Germany and where kind of the money's being inflated away and people are investing in the stock market or buying Swiss francs and they're all getting rich in inverted commas. But it's
yeah,
really because the stock market has been pumped with fake money and anyone who can get a hold of Swiss francs has gotten out of it. That's kind of what you're describing. And I also understand what you mean. I've been seeing it happen for years and it is scary. But,
yeah,
on the plus side, there is this technology that gives people a way out and it can be made available to them in a way that they can use, which is what you folks do. And maybe that's the best that one can do given the confluence of forces that are kind of happening around us. In
yeah.
any case, well, go ahead,
I
man.
think I think we have there a kind of obligation, which is be the spokesperson of let's say this uh, that we can be better, not that things will explode and everything will be bad, but we actually can change the world by using this technology because what you're doing at the end of the day, it's actually starting to level up a little bit the game and have more power or take power out of certain institutions that are naturally corrupt, So I think the most positive, or I think it's solar punk, right? Position. It's the way to go in this topic.
Well, it's provably true that it only requires one or a few people to come up with inventions that change everything. You've mentioned the Wright brothers before, a couple of bicycle makers who literally
Yeah,
solve a problem that people have been working on for centuries, going back to
yeah,
Leonardo.
yeah,
We know with encryption, PGP, we know with how it's embedded in WhatsApp. It's a couple of examples, but
yeah,
I already know that like a few people can change everything. It doesn't mean that it's guaranteed it'll change everything, but it's certainly possible. But it does require focused time, energy, and effort, and a bit of luck. But it's
yeah.
certainly possible.
Going back to regulation, is that hackers, independently on the field that they are playing, they will always hack the world, and that I think really comforting in a way, because they don't think about, bureaucrats. They think about solving the actual problem. And if they need to do uh, stuff which are wrong, they will do it anyway because it's the right thing to do, And that's, I think that speaks really highly about the human being, which is kind of good to know, no?
It is. I mean, hackers also tend to get burned at the stake, so
Yeah.
it's not a
But
selfless act.
I think Satoshi understood this really early, and by disappearing, he makes a statement basically, but also he eliminates, the single point of failure of the technology, which was brilliant in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a distinct reason why somebody like that, especially coming out of the cypherpunk mailing lists and whatnot, would decide to do that quite obviously, and also leave all that Bitcoin behind in a wallet. Yes, indeed. The repercussions of being the hacker or the witch or the heretic, very, very clear to that person. Right. So we need to close things up, Manu. Any last words before we do?
Yeah, a few. Visit Argentina. We're happy to receive you and have a coffee and an asado. I think it's interesting to see what we are building. I think we live in a really magic country. There's a lot of people building cool stuff there. Buy Bitcoin. I'm mostly sure that you already have, and it's not a financial advice in any form. And yeah, I mean, if you have any comments or anything from the other side of the screen, happy to receive it through Twitter, where I'm mostly active.
Where can people find you on the interwebs, Manu?
So it's really difficult, but at M Beaudroit, it's my hashtag. In general, I mean, with my name, I'm the only Manuel Beaudroit in the planet, so it will be fairly easy.
There you go, Manuel Beaudroit. Check it out. We'll put it into the notes for the episode. Manu, thank you. I look forward to seeing you in Buenos Aires again very soon.
Yeah, please let me know.
Have a good evening. Ciao.
Okay, bye, Ben.
Well, there you have it, folks. Manuel Beaudroit, CEO at Belo. I hope you enjoyed the interview as much as I did. What they're doing there is really interesting and is a really important piece of the overall puzzle in bringing this cryptocurrency digital asset space to mass market. So, to finish things up, US listeners, check out Wisdom Tree Prime on the Apple or Android app stores. Check me out on the X/Bird app at Benjamin Dean. Thank you for joining us today. It's always nice to have you here. And I'm looking forward to seeing you next time. Ciao.